PDGA Board of Directors elections for the 2024 year. Well, they open on July 1st. You will be receiving your ballot in your email if you are a current PDGA member, and of course, if your email is up to date and a email address that you check frequently. If you haven't done that, you might want to go ahead and do so you can learn more and cast your vote for any of several candidates seeking your vote this year, including this one, Luke Turnbull, PDGA number 63994. Luke coming to us from down under in this global sport. And Luke, first of all, my apologies for butchering that accent. It's the best I can do. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome. Tell us a little something about yourself.
Thanks, Grant. And it wasn't too bad. It'd be better than my American accent, so I won't embarrass myself with that. My name's Luke. I've been playing disc golf for 12 or 13 years now. Started back in the early teens, 2011 or 12, I think it was. A reluctant admission to the sport. I had a friend drag me along after months and months of pestering me and just fell in love with it. I've been on the Australian Disc Golf Board of Directors since 2017, or since 2014 actually, serving as president since 2017. And I kind of want to take it to the next level, which I think is the Board of Directors. In the rest of my life, which I guess is work, I'm an analyst. I work for the New South Wales state government, so one of the states of Australia. I work as an analyst implementing change into one of our contact centre structures that we have here. I've been doing that for 2.5 years. Prior to that, I spent about 15 years as a business analyst and an operations manager with a telco. So that's my professional history.
Great stuff. Well, let's dive right into the topic at hand, which is the PDGA, the board, and the many issues that the board has to deal with, oversee, the different policies and procedures that they enact. In your opinion, what are the most important issues or priorities that you want to bring to the forefront of the board should you be elected?
I think the one thing that I want to focus on is adding value to membership, and primarily to international membership. There's a lot of value that people in North America get. The membership card, you flip it over and there's half a dozen things that you can use your membership card at. From an international perspective, we get PDGA ratings, and that's essentially it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. We get access to things like the Marco Polo funds as well, and lots of help from PDGA board and subcommittees as well. Like I know personally that Brian Hoynig has been fantastic for us in Australia over the decade or so I've been involved, and I know the amazing work that he's done in Southeast Asia as well. But providing better benefits and better value, particularly to those kind of emerging countries, I think that's a great thing that the PDGA can do. And one of the things that I'd like to champion if I was to be successful on the board is a focused growth in Southeast Asia and the Pacific. The potential for growth there in some, 3 of the 10 most populous nations in the world are all kind of like just there. They have very small, if potentially even non-existent disc golf scenes. So the potential for growth there is enormous. So it's just something that we need to work on. How do we make it happen? So focusing on that with the long-term view to establish a PDGA Asia Pacific similar to PDGA Europe. That's kind of the long kind of 5 to 10 year goal that I have.
Well, it's a difficult question when we consider the incredible diversity in PDGA membership, especially when we look at it through global eyes, because geographically alone, while it is still very much a North American-centric sport, we want it to grow more and more globally, and it is doing so. Let me phrase this way. What benefits either are there that need to be championed even more, or perhaps aren't there that you think would be valuable? And can you identify some of those member benefits, and what can you do to try to get them as part of the package for disc golfers everywhere, but in your case especially for those that maybe aren't centered in North America?
Yeah, I think probably the biggest challenge, not just geographically, is also socioeconomically. A lot of the countries that we're talking about in Southeast Asia, they don't have the financial capacity. Like an international membership, I think, is 20 US as an amateur player. Obviously for me, that's not a huge amount of money to be able to go, yes, I'm going to be a PDGA member. But in Southeast Asia, $20 is weeks of income potentially. So potential subsidies to attract players in those regions. It's not as accessible. We talk about how disc golf is this wonderful, accessible, cheap, free-to-play sport, but $20 to become a member can be a huge amount of money. So more accessibility, and to make tournaments more accessible as well. Not just particularly the running of them. That's a big focus of what I've put in my campaign bio as well. One of the things that I've kind of noticed is Australia, New Zealand, a couple of other countries are what you would call far more developed disc golf countries. We've got the means and the resources to run those higher tier events. The international guide is very open-ended. The top end is quite restrictive. The bottom end is quite open. And what I'd like to see developed for those countries outside North America and outside Europe is a international program guide that kind of focuses on that. Has countries like Australia and New Zealand held to a higher standard, and have those developing nations have something that becomes more accessible and less restrictive in terms of what they're required to offer as prizes, entry fees, even fees to the PDGA.
Well, let's try to get a little bit minute here then. What can be done as the governing body to increase these competitive opportunities? And I don't say competitive meaning everything has to be pro caliber and where competition is the only goal of that particular gathering, but with regard to getting more and more communities opportunities to come out with a purpose, and that purpose being playing this game together, what can actually be done? What kinds of ideas do you have to increase competitive opportunities and, of course, the quality of those opportunities, especially in these fledgling communities?
Yeah, it's a good question, Grant. I guess the biggest blocker to growth in those regions is also the growth of volunteers. You can't have events if you don't have people running them. So one of the things that I've talked about is PDGA establishing a TD mentoring program of sorts.
Okay.
We have so many phenomenal TDs that run absolute top tier events, whether they're at the pro level, they're at the local level, and those volunteers, assisting and coaching novice TDs, that helps us raise the level of the events, and it gets more people involved. You get something a bit more recognisable than just, hey, I spent 3 weeks doing this thing to run an event. You get some form of recognition from the PDGA that you've passed a qualification or certification of some sort, and you are recognised as a TD that can fall into this mentoring program. It gives more back to the volunteers as well. More volunteers, more events, more accessible for players, and you raise the standard of those events, more people are going to come back.
The PDGA Board of Directors is a unique group of people. They come from a variety of backgrounds. They're a variety of different ages, races. They're from different countries, different regions. They come from a different group of skill sets and education and, shall we say, professional career experience. And all of that goes into what they bring to the overall body. In your case, and especially with regard to some of these issues you've brought up, what do you bring to the table from the standpoint of your educational background, your experiential background, your career? How can those skills be valuable, for lack of a better term, to this larger group?
Yeah, sure. As I said, I'm currently working as an analyst. I've got over a decade's experience as an analyst and an operations manager, so I've got people management experience across a couple of different industries. I've been involved in long-term forecasting and planning in contact centres, so I know my way around a spreadsheet. It's kind of where I'd like to live if I could. The numbers that sit behind things and making sense of them. So that's a skill that I can bring to the board as well. But mostly my experience on the Australian Disc Golf Board. I started out just locally, running events with my local club in Newcastle, Australia. I moved interstate and took over the state board position to a state that didn't have a disc golf course, didn't have a disc golf club. So I've got that experience working with local and state government to get a course and a club established. And obviously now I'm the Australian president as well. So I guess the big thing that we've implemented in the last 12 months since we chatted in May last year, we've kicked off the first steps of our 5-year strategic plan. So, kind of all of the little stuff local, but also an ability to look at the big picture and what we want here and where we want to be in the next 5 years. It's an experience that I can take to the PDGA board.
Perhaps a final question, we'll see how much time we have left for you this afternoon, is a tricky one. Sort of an opportunity for me to put you on a little bit of a spot and ask you where in your observation the PDGA may be falling short right now. Where are some issues or some programs or really anything where you feel like change is in order and you feel like you have identified perhaps one or more issues, and not only that, but you have ideas at least that might lend themselves toward solutions? So in other words, I'm asking you to be critical but also constructive in these comments, and to let our voters know who might share some of the same feelings you're about to express, to let them know that you see things and what you intend to do about them.
This one's a bit personal to me because I suspect what I think the PDGA is doing wrong is probably what a lot of the Australian disc golf member base thinks the ADG is doing wrong. And it's the same two calls that we hear quite often, is it's transparency and engagement. I don't think, if it's the same as here in Australia, I don't think PDGA members know everything that they get. I don't think the PDGA tells enough about what they do. And I know it's the same here. The Australian disc golf, our members don't know what we do to the degree that they're satisfied that what they're paying for gets them a service. And I suspect it's the same with PDGA members. The amount of stuff that happens behind the scenes that people would not be aware of. I think being transparent and engaging with the community across more social media platforms than the PDGA currently does. Getting people out there, social media engagement. I think I've mentioned previously that I'm one of the moderators over on the Disc Golf Sub on Reddit. I think about 250,000 members. Tens of thousands of those are active. There's no PDGA board presence as far as I'm aware. There's a couple of pros that drop in every now and then. But to have a social media presence like that with no engagement from the PDGA, and engagement has to be a two-way street. Lots of the PDGA stuff that they do is, here is something. People put posts and questions and comments on PDGA articles on Facebook. It just sits there. And some of the questions are legit questions, some of them are criticisms, some of them are quite harsh in nature, and they just sit there. So people see that and think, well, what's the PDGA doing? Talk to us. There's these questions, some of them legit, but no one says anything about them. So better engagement with the members base, and not just the member base, the people that aren't members. If it was as simple as saying, "Hey, Reddit, come vote for me," I think I'd be quite successful. But I suspect only maybe 5 to 10% of those members of Reddit are actually PDGA members. So you've got to engage with the people that aren't members and find out what you could do to get them on board as well.
Luke, by way of giving you a final moment here, I want to ask you if there's anything that we've missed today that you want to make sure gets out there in terms of speaking to your potential voters. It can be really anything. It can be about your skill set experience. It can be an issue that we haven't brought up thus far that you have some thoughts on, or anything else that you want to make sure that the voter knows before they cast their vote later on here in a few weeks.
It's only a few weeks away. It happens quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I guess not really. I'm a pretty open book. If anyone wants to come chat to me, I'm on social media, at Turnbull on Facebook. Come to the Disc Golf subreddit, ask questions there. I'll planning to put up an AMA of my own and ask me anything in a couple of weeks' time ahead of the elections on Reddit. So yeah, open book. Ask me, come approach me. I think I'm pretty approachable. So yeah, if you're a member or if you're a non-member that's got criticisms, or you're sitting on the fence, come talk to me. I want to be approachable and accessible for people.
Turnbull is PDGA number 63994, one of several running in this year's 2024 PDGA Board of Directors elections. Those ballots go out on July 1st, and you can find out more about Luke and all the other candidates in an article at pdga.com, or also some information on our social channels, including, of course, this interview and interviews with other candidates. Luke, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck.
Thanks, Grant. Cheers.